nonetheless, we will continue with our sessions as normal. Excited to see the attendance here. Really glad to see people joining in. I know it is a holiday weekend coming up for people in the United States. I have a really exciting workshop today where we're going to be doing some really practical learning on how to actually get your content to show up in AI. As I talk to more and more companies, even later stage companies that are more established with their content systems, the question, once we get into it a little bit, is the question is always like, how do you actually do this? How do you actually make it so your company shows up and ranks higher in AI search? And if you think about it, the big idea is that an AI system, an LLM, whether that's Claude or ChatGPT, it really builds its answers that it's reciting back to you by quoting different sources. It's trained on a set of data, and that is continuously being trained over time. And so when you ask a specific question, it's reaching for a specific, most source, most quotable line that it can find, and it really skips the rest. And so if it finds something that is true on 10,000 other pages, how does it determine which one to be picked? And so the whole game is to answer the one question before you hit publish on anything is, could someone else have written this? And if yes, the engine, the LLM is probably going to skip it. And now if it could only have come from you and your specific level of expertise, that's going to be what gets quoted. And everything else is going to be falling away. And so today we're going to go through how we check to see how we're showing up. And also what to do about it, right? How do we solve this once we realize that this is maybe a problem? Okay, what do we do now to make the change? So really exciting to run through this today. Thank you for joining. For those of you who are new, and for those who have come back for a few times, thank you. It's awesome to see you again. I'm just going to get my tabs ready here. And the goal here is to have you walk away being able to look at any page on any website, hopefully your own, and understanding, if an LLM would be citing this source or not. As for some of you who joined before, as you guys know, I really like to make these interactive. So please use the chat, ask questions. I'm going to be asking some questions throughout the session. And the first thing is I want to understand kind of what everyone's role is. What's the work you do day to day? What's your title maybe? And then if anyone is brave enough to volunteer their website or industry, we can do a live audit on this workshop and make this super tailored and tangible for you. So you get a free kind of strategy session as we do this. But you might have to, get over the fear of being publicly outed a little bit, but all for, for education purposes. Awesome, Leslie. Feel free to drop your company's domain in here. This is I like to get live audience participation. Cool. So let's get into things. So okay, let's check out the website. OSCA, AI powered solutions for risk adjustment, quality measures. What would you, how would you categorize your? Oh, that's awesome. This is a live in progress. What would you say your industry is, Leslie? How would you categorize it? Healthcare IT. Awesome. Okay. So what I like to do is first is like think about how your buyer is making purchasing decisions today. We already know that that search has surpassed LLMs have become the default search engine. We've surpassed Google. And so when your buyer has a question about maybe what the best healthcare IT company is, um, or the best healthcare IT software, what they're going to do is they're going to go to Claude, they're going to go to ChatGPT, they're going to go to their LLM of choice, and they're going to specifically ask that query. So let's see what happens when we do that. We'll come here and we'll say, what is the best healthcare? Oh, I'm going to do this incognito just so it doesn't pull any random. What is the best healthcare IT software for, I'm going to say, best risk adjustment healthcare IT? Cool. I like it. We're being specific. And that's something that for mid-stage corpse. Okay. So the first thing I want you guys to notice is look how much longer this search query is and specific it is than what someone would normally type in Google. And so that's the biggest thing that we have to start wrapping our head around is the search queries are actually much longer and much more specific, which has pros and cons. The pro is there is more specific keywords that your company can start to rank for. Where before, it might have been a shorter search. It might have just been like best healthcare IT, right? You want to use as few words as possible. And so, okay, is this still running? I'm evaluating vendors software. And so this gives us more opportunity to rank on these specific keywords. The other component is the best of framing is the best thing that we can type into. More than 60, it's between 60 and 70% 74% of queries start with the best of framing. So what is the best of X for usually Y industry, right? And so we want to understand that this is how people are searching for these industries. So while this is taking a little bit too long to give me a response, we will come in here and awesome. Okay, so we got 3 options. LLMs usually return about 3 to 5 options. So it looks like we have Datavant, Vatica Health, Cozeva. Curious, Leslie, are these competitors that you guys know? Awesome. Are they kind of the massive, obvious answer? Okay, cool. So, right, so what it's doing is it is searching. If you actually look at this, it is searching and finding, the sources to cite. And so, how the whole question and the whole framing of this is how do we interject ourselves into those results? And so we have to start working on 3 components, right? There are 3 key components to ranking on AI search. We need really exceptional on-site content, so owned content. You can see this is pulling from Datavant's actual website. That's not always the case. We also need to worry about off-site, right? Other publication, other resources in these industries are putting together their own best of lists, these listicles. And so you need, and sometimes, and most of the time, it depends on the industry, those will actually be cited more than someone's owned website. And so it's very important to be featured and referenced in those off-site articles. And then third is technical. So technical is the component that, make sure that your website is crawlable and scannable by LLMs, and making sure that some of the basic SEO best practices are still being applied. And so, if we want to understand how we can make these improvements and where to start, we first need to have a baseline of where we are today. We have put together a free AEO audit tool, and I'll just say, all of this is kind of unnecessary. Infer science, and we can come in here and revenue is just estimated. That helps us. The revenue input helps us understand kind of like who's actually a competitor, right? Who's at the same level of you versus just always looking at those massive companies, right? So if you put in best CRM and you're a new company, we don't want to just see that HubSpot dominates, right? That's probably obvious. It's better to understand, maybe how are we doing compared to like Pipedrive or, some of the other new modern CRMs. And what this tool does is it goes and it actually builds ICP personas and goes and runs a bunch of queries like what's the best X for Y industry, in addition to other queries those personas might be searching in their buying journey. And so it's going and it's running those searches. It's also scanning the website to understand kind of how you are on a technical side of things. It's going and looking at your content. It's also going and looking to understand your entire entity authority, right? Entity authority is the all-encompassing perspective of how you're ranking. So your on-site domain authority is no longer sufficient. Okay, it looks like it's taking a little bit long on here. While that's running still, I'm going to come back here to my slides. Sorry, I skipped my whole intro. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Will. I founded Catalyst about almost 3 years ago. We've worked with 150 different B2B companies over the last 3 years to help them show up on AI search, as well as building executive social presences. Our best client has been with us for a year, and we've helped them generate $8 million in new revenue through AI search alone. So we have a lot of data points of what actually works and what is just noise on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so I want to start a little bit more conceptually before we jump back into the report to think about, okay, why are these LLMs citing some companies versus others? So we'll start talking about that. We'll see what the engine sees. That'll be going through the report. And then I'll run you through the playbook on how to solve it. Also giving you tangible steps that you can take starting next week to start making these changes. So the thing to know is AI quotes the one thing that it can't find anywhere else. It loves originality. AI has been trained on, it first in 2020. It was trained on the entire web at a static level. And then since then, it keeps getting trained better and better on the live web, right? And so it is constantly ingesting millions, billions of data points to be able to stay fresh and new. And so it sees in that context the same thing being said over and over again. It already knows that in their memory. I'm sure you've gone to ChatGPT and asked a question, or Claude and asked a question, and it gives you an answer without even citing a source. That's because it knows that information. It is trained on that information already. And so what we need to do is give it something new. Because if we are the first ones to say it, it is simply having to do a search because it doesn't know it within its own memory, and going out and finding the answer and then regurgitating it back to you while citing its source of where it found that information. And so our whole framing of how we create content is this something that AI already knows? Or can we provide it something that is unique, different, offers a new perspective, offers different data? And so that's the first thing that we need to talk about. And so when you're producing content, you want to add a cited source, something realistic, something real. Pages that are doing this and that are actually contributing net new research are seeing 40% more citations across the board. It is the biggest one-page lever that almost nobody pulls because it feels like extra work, right? The idea of going out and producing that net new information seems like a lot of work, but is the best thing that you can do of publishing this original insight and reports on your website. So the old way of how you optimize for search is that it pulled the page that ranks highest. It was earned by more backlinks and keyword stuffing. And then your buyer would arrive to your site via a click, right? So you show up on that first page of Google. And then, that's how you would be discovered. Now we want to think, okay, what is the answer or the response that we want to provide, that we want the LLM to go find and regurgitate to the person who is answering it? The way you earn it is having original sourced claims that you are providing net new to the internet. And the way that the buyer arrives is when you ask that question in chat, you are one of those three answers. Any questions so far? And so as we are thinking about this, we want to think about how LLMs are pulling information. These are the ranked order of how LLMs are picking who are we selecting for these answers. 44% of ChatGPT citations come from the first third of the page. So that's something very interesting to know. LLMs are actually quite lazy, right? They don't even scan the entire page. And so we want to front load and put the information at the top of the page. Most B2B pages open with a brand paragraph and bury the answer in the middle, which hides those good lines. So move your information up higher. You want to move your single most specific source sentence into that first paragraph. It's so important. And you want to answer the buyer's question in one sentence before you actually go into describing it in more detail. And so front load that answer. The next thing is making sure it's plain and readable writing, right? Look at how Claude answers my question. It is written in a reading level that everyone can understand. If the LLM, back to LLMs are quite lazy, if the LLM has to take a step further to then reprocess what you said and write it in a simpler way, it is going to skip over that until it finds an answer that's already easily digestible to the end user. Ranking number one still is important. I don't think people should fully abandon their SEO strategy because there are still users going to Google. But ranking number one in AI is a variable. That's why when we run these tests, we run multiple searches, right? If you open Claude and ask the same thing, you will probably get slightly different answers. We know this already. And so number one spot isn't necessarily the most important. It's showing up in 3 or 5 of those answers consistently. And that's something that we've been testing a lot is schema markup. This was very important in SEO, less important in AEO. It is more about not having a JavaScript heavy website or a website that actively blocks crawlers, because that way you won't show up and rank at all. Okay, let's jump into this audit. So we did the search, we found what shows up. Now let's dive into how InfoScience is actually showing up. You can run this audit yourself. Again, it's gotcatalyst.com/AEO-audit. And this is what it will look like. So first, what we're looking at is a mix of three things. We're looking at voice share, right? How loud is your voice when people are searching this all together? That is kind of your overall score. Then that's broken into the three components: offsite mentions, on-site content, and technical. You can see we have a whole lot of statistics on here. I like pulling this into thinking about revenue, right? How many people are actually searching this? And so what is my actual opportunity to rank here? And let's look at offsite sources first. So a little bit low, but that's okay, because the first thing we're looking for is who are the the third party publications that are actively writing these best of lists for this category. Unfortunately, you're not ranking on any of them at the moment, but you can actually go and find them right here. We link to them specifically. These are the most cited source. And so, my recommendation, Leslie, is to reach out to these individuals who are authoring these. All 10 of them are right here. So super easy. And go reach out to them and see if you can get added to the list. Wikipedia actually is a very valuable source, especially for ChatGPT. ChatGPT loves Wikipedia. We're also starting to look at other social platforms, right? YouTube, LinkedIn. LinkedIn is quickly becoming one of the favorite sources for LLMs. And then it also weights it with press coverage, right? So if you have a good PR release, or you have some other kind of third party sites that have more of a journalistic or news angle talking about your company, they like that. You have a G2 profile. Awesome. We love G2 profiles because that is a place where real customers can leave real reviews. So for the LLM, it understands, is there a positive or negative sentiment towards this company? On-site content, nice job. It looks like you have blogs being posted, maybe on a little bit of a lower volume. That's an action item here. And then it's found something that it deems as original, right? So maybe you guys are publishing original research, or you're publishing things with a real unique perspective. It's kind of a uniqueness rating in here. Then on the technical side, this is your highest scoring. Congratulations, 70% out of 100. The missing component, it looks like you're crawlable, you have organized schema, but no LLMs.txt. This is something that, again, AI is very lazy, and so it wants to be able to land on your website. And what it looks for first is an LLMs.txt file, and it wants to understand your entire website really quickly. And that's what you can do there. Awesome. Excited to hear that. And so, again, these are the best of lists for off-party or off-site publications. This is so important to be featured on one or two of these at least. They will boost your visibility significantly in this period of time. I don't know if that will be forever, but it is definitely a great place to start. You can also look over here how you're showing up by each LLM. So not showing up on ChatGPT, you are showing up on Claude. Nice. Also showing up pretty regularly on Gemini, 40%, 10% on Perplexity, but then not showing up on Google AI over. So that is Google's new, entrance into the race. Yeah, it is odd, and this kind of speaks to that inconsistency level, right? If you go and run the same search on Claude today, you will get different results. Same thing with ChatGPT. And so it is a volume game. When we run this audit, we run 100 different searches across all 5 of the LLMs. And so this is just taking an aggregate from our one snapshot. And so that's why you want to consistently be monitoring how you're ranking and how you're showing up. So So overall rank of the 27 companies, you're number 12. And you can see, these are the ones that are dominating on here. It is showing some companies below you. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a boost of confidence that you guys are doing this well. But there are some incumbents that are, we need to target and try to get ahead of. Again, the way we want to look at understand how you're ranking here is because if we set out to try to compete with Optimum right away, that's going to be a hard metric to show. And that's a hard metric for us to try to win. But with a few changes, we can probably jump from position number 12 into 6 or 7 relatively easily just by fixing that on-site volume, the technical, and getting referenced in some of those off-site. We also break down who is showing up across each LLM and what the search query was and the response of each of them. So best HCC coding software for health plan risk adjustment 2026. It's another good point. 2020 keywords with 2026 show relevancy and timeliness, which LLMs love, and as well as knowing that it's like current and up to date. And so you can go through each of these and see what the actual response is from each of the LLMs. Here is you showing up Claude, Gemini, and Perplexity for the keyword best MEAT criteria auditing tool for HCC code validation, best care gap identification software, best alternatives. So the green ones are the ones that you are ranking for, and it shows you on which LLM, and then the ones you're not. Hint, go write an article, go write content that answers these questions specifically. We get into some more details. You can see the query volume versus your coverage for some keywords, and some more specifics about which are you showing up for, and which are your competitors showing up for. And then we kind of give a summary of, maybe why you're losing. Sorry, we're very direct in our language on this. But the few things holding you back, and these are really just kind of quick wins that you can go for. Pretty much, unfortunately, 86% of buyer queries answered without you. So we want to increase the amount we're showing up. ChatGPT, which is one of the largest LLMs, isn't citing you in any of the prompts. So that's the biggest engine gap. And then we couldn't find, and this part isn't perfect. That's why in the intake, we do ask for a founder or someone on the executive team's LinkedIn profile, because this is, quickly becoming one of the #1 organic LLM citation score rating. And then you can see kind of where things land from an authority and entity side of things, as well as some additional offsite coverage places. So not finding Wikipedia, not finding any SERP ownership, not finding any tier 1 press coverage. It is finding a company LinkedIn page. It's finding Crunchbase announcements. No YouTube found. It found the G2. We then get into more on the content, as well as more of the technical. So I highly recommend you running through all of these. The nice thing is we have a fix it section, which I'll jump to in a second. But you can also take your teardown, and we have a way to load it into your LLM of choice and download it as a PDF and memory pack that you can load into your AI to actually walk you through the steps on how to solve this. But the highest recommendation is define your entity and AI training sources, add FAQ schema markup across your content, and then start getting your content posting on more regularly on LLMs. Thank you, Leslie, for being brave enough to coming up. Please run an audit yourself. If you have any questions, I'm available. And let's jump back into kind of what we do more about this from a content standpoint. That will guide you through kind of the whole thing, but this session is really meant to be how do you show up and be the answer that is LLMs are actually recommending. So the first lever that you want to pull on, which I was talking about the first half of this session, is could only you have written this piece of information? Are you saying something net new? And so, as a cited source, we know if you have originality, you are 40% more likely to show up in citations. Now, where is the content placed? Is the answer buried in a few multiple sentences spread out through, 1,200, 1,500 words? Or do you have a good consolidated answer at the top of the search? If you come here, my assumption is that if I go to this website, those two sentences will be combined together almost word for word at the top of their page, right? So are you giving the answer that you want LLMs to recite to your buyer cohesively, compactly at the top of the page? And then are you checking these engines consistently? So you can't just run this audit once. You need to keep checking it, every 2 weeks, every month at least, because this is a good thing. The feedback signal is much quicker now, right? You can make a change and see the yield of your results or the benefits within a couple of days or weeks, where SEO prior, you were making changes and waiting months before you could see the benefits coming into play. And so this is something that you have to actively be checking. Now, the 3 prompts that I want to share with you guys today help you accomplish a few different things. Score the page. So what it's going to do is look at source density, if it's front loaded, and score for originality. And so that will give you a baseline of is the information you're putting on that page structured correctly, front loaded, and offering originality. The next one is going to be find the line that only you could write. So it's going to scan through and give you an idea of what it's finding as being unique and original. Then third, run the visibility check. So you can run this on your own LLM. It's going to give you, this is kind of what I ran at the beginning. Or you can run it through our free AI visibility tool that gives you a little bit more comprehensive overview. But the idea with these 3 prompts is, who is it citing? Am I offering something net new? And then you can get a, kind of overview score. So the way to process this and actually run through this from a solving point of view is run the search, find out where it's working, where it's not. Pick the page that you think should have won that answer and did not. Leslie, I don't know if you have a page on here that you want to direct us to that you think should have shown up as the answer here. Do you have a best HCC software 2026 page on here? Sweet. Let's go check it out. HCC assistant. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, I'm going to drop it in chat, and I'm going to come and take this prompt. I could have just linked to the URL. I just thought I would save it a step of just copying the text. And so what I'm saying is score this page 0 to 2 on source density, front load, and originality. Could a competitor have published these sentences? List the highest impact fix first. Paste the page. I pasted the entire page. So we'll let that run for a second. Leslie, thank you again for being so brave. This is getting into a case study and then some things. Okay, let's jump back into this though. This is more interesting. So what's cool about this is, right, like Claude it's giving you its thought process. I think that's a lot of something that people haven't really closed the loop on is like the Claude is inconsistent, or any LLM is inconsistent, or it kind of offers different new things each time. And so we are asking it to test itself on here. What we like about this page is that it does have some source density. We have some original data and some statistics. We're missing a little bit of source methodology attribution. This can come up in different ways, right? Where you guys have statistics that you're citing on here. Let's see where the data is. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, right. Where is where is this coming from? Where are we pulling these from? Even if it's yourself linking to another page. The RAF table, CMS model, work vendor produce, 100% compliant with all regulations. Again, take all this with a little bit of grain of salt. Front loaded structurally is okay. The hero states the outcome and a CTA appears fast. We have generic benefit claims at the beginning. Maybe there's a way to bring some of these user stories or usage stories further up on the page so that it can have this as its assumption. And then it scored you 0 out of originality. Let's take a look at why that is. Right, so how can we make claims that no one else can? Awesome. I know, Leslie. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm hopefully this is helpful. But so the first fix is leading with highest impact first. So right, are there any case studies? Are there any things that you guys can mention or reference? Are there testimonials? This is why G2 ratings are really powerful in the hero section, right? How can you share or show your ability to deliver on this outcome in above the fold? The statistics throughout the page definitely back them out, right? If this is based off of your own methodology, if this is based off of customer stories, adding a line being like, this is an aggregate of our customer stories, and then linking to those, is a very valid way. If it's external research, linking to that. This is, I don't know. I defer to you and your own regulatory compliance, world for this answer. But again, it's just the idea is backup claims that you're making to either cite where they're coming from or how you derived at that. And so it's really fun, super easy prompt. Again, it's very high level just to give you signal, where you can run that on all of your different pages. You could come in here and say, pull the sitemap and run the same search for every page on the website. And so, you can do a larger audit of this altogether. So I want to tell you about a company that we've been working with for the last year. This is the same playbook that we run all of our clients through. And I think the really impactful thing about AI search is that it's so new. We are learning all of this stuff on the fly. And so we want to be consistently testing and touching these best practices. And that's what, being able to see so many clients across the board and seeing what's working for some industries versus others. But it is such a powerful channel right now because it is such a greenfield opportunity. Not a lot of people have realized that they need to optimize for it. It's something that maybe you've heard about or people are talking about in your ecosystem, but the amount that are actually taking action to the degree that they need to is very significantly low. And so I personally get excited when there's these kind of new opportunities, because if you can catch a channel before it gets saturated, there's so much opportunity to win. I mean, unlocking $8 million in pipeline for a business is insane. Depending on, regardless of the size of the business, there's a significant amount of value being driven from just a single channel. So, my recommendation to you is understand your baseline, right? What's working, what's not. We can't make any adjustments, we can't make a plan unless we know where we are today. Write down those competitors. Try to understand, you can also try to understand how they're ranking and try to get ahead of them. Simply just pick one page, like the page we just audited, and score it from density, front load, and originality. I honestly think front load is one of the quickest way to start showing up and ranking higher. It's a really easy fix too. And then make sure that you're adding sources to or customer numbers so it validates your claims. We have so many AI search playbooks on our website. You can scan and get the resources here, which give you more granular solutions to all of the problems that we're exposing here. And then, of course, you can always you can check me out on LinkedIn and ask any questions specifically. I love doing these live audits. I think they're so much more valuable than me preparing a fake audit or an example audit. And so, if you have questions about your specific website or problems that you're trying to experience, please hit me up. Let me know. I run these workshops every week. I'm now starting to do them twice a week because there's been so much demand. And so, if you like these, if you find these valuable, please join. And if you have any topic you want me to cover, we cover everything from Claude Code, setups for marketing leaders and CRO leaders, to AEO specifically, to executive LinkedIn content. We really are trying to cover the board to give you all the resources you need to deploy AI and use Claude to the best of your ability. But of course, I can guess what you guys want to see all day long, and it is so helpful to hear from you directly. And if you run the audit and you want me to jump on a call with you and kind of walk you through what to do about it, I do those for free all the time as well. Again, it just helps me absorb and understand where people really are, and give you some tactical advice on how to make some solves and solve the problems that we're exposing. Anyway, that's it for me today. Thank you guys again for joining. For those in the US, enjoy your holiday weekend. For those of you who are not, I hope you see you guys all next week. We have a really exciting session on Tuesday, where we're going to be going through Claude Code. And so you can find me on Maven, you can find me on LinkedIn. And yeah, have a great weekend.